Welcome to the DPost Sports Chat. I'm sports editor Drew Rubenstein, and I'm here with college football beat reporter Ed Owens. And Ed, we're a week into fall camp, and at this point for the Mountaineers, not much is yet known. They haven't named a starting quarterback, haven't named a starting running back, and who lines up at receiver August 31st against William & Mary waits to be seen. But it seems like the one thing that we do know and that you've touched on in a few articles is the depth. It seems like it's significantly different than what it's been in past years.
It is. They have a lot of people at a lot of different positions where maybe last year, especially early on in practice, they were only repping one, maybe two guys at each position. Dana Holgerson's really made a point now of saying that they're going 3, sometimes 4 deep at different spots because they just have the bodies and they didn't have it last year.
So each position, you can look at it and we can break it down, but I guess the general thing is this a good thing? I mean, this seems like the direction he wanted to take the program, but what's this depth going to actually mean come game day?
I don't think depth can be a bad thing in any way for them. And really from everything they've been saying through the first couple weeks of camp here has been that depth is breeding competition, that maybe guys were a little complacent before, and that now nothing is guaranteed. No one has a spot. No one is guaranteed any positions anywhere on the field, and it's really kind of stepped up the level of competition.
I think I've noticed that most just from the little parts that we see of practice where the quarterbacks, I remember Dana's first year here, for quite a few of the practices, him and Shannon Dawson would kind of mix in to be the third quarterback in the rotation, whereas this year they've got 3 guys completely all competing for the starting job. And not only that, but actually Logan Moore even actually was moved over to wide receiver. But let's kind of go down, breakdown of each position and kind of start there at the quarterback. Dana Holgerson's press conference was today, and I know quarterback competition was a big thing. You've got Paul Millard, Ford Childress, Clint Trickett. Has anybody separated himself at this point?
No, and Dana said we won't know when they do. I think he's going to try to keep that under wraps for as long as possible. Until maybe even the William & Mary game, I think, if he had his way. But one interesting thing he did say today was they're finally going to start situational play. Up until now, they've just kind of been going through the paces on offense. Today, they're going to start working on third downs. They're going to start working on goal line situations. And he said that's really where the quarterbacks are going to separate themselves from each other.
Have you noticed anything? We've seen Paul Millard and Ford Childress throughout spring ball, and we saw Paul last year in a couple games backing up Gino. And we've seen a couple 30-minute situations, nothing with the whole team, but has anything stuck out about Clint Trickett at this point? Anything that you've noticed from watching him throw a couple passes?
He moves well. He's got a good arm. I think all 3 of them have great arms, obviously, or else they wouldn't be here. But Trickett does move well, and it seems like he's really fitting in. I guess that's one of the things. He's got a good rapport with the guys, and one of the things the receivers have said specifically about Trickett is that it's been kind of seamless, the transition in. It's not like working in a new quarterback. It's like he's been here for a while.
Going to running back, this is kind of a question that would probably have to wait till game days to actually see how it'll be answered. They have a lot of running backs. There's talk about them being able to potentially move out to the slot to the wide receiver. Let's get a little rundown of the running backs and what you think they could bring to the table.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of being able to flex a guy out there to inside receiver or maybe even move him outside, and one of the guys specifically is Charles Sims, transfer from Houston. He played for Dana before and did have success catching the ball. And they've kind of hinted at it that maybe Andrew Bowie or Dustin Garrison could do a similar role, but it's not something they've really been required to do in the past. And offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson made the point with the depth they have at receiver, moving a running back out there might just bury them even further on the depth chart. They like versatility, so it's always an option. The other guy they have is Dreamus Smith, who Dana told us today has been injured out for the last couple of practices. That's something to keep an eye on, but he's obviously a bigger, more power runner and really could bring something different to that backfield.
How many receivers is it that they have right now?
17.
17. So the competition is obviously high, but you just imagine even just being able to evaluate and trying to figure out what guys can bring into the program and what they can bring in certain situations where there'll be more situational players. But how many guys do you think they actually want to narrow this thing down to, and how many could actually end up being key contributors come game day?
I think that'll be up to the receivers themselves. One thing that Shannon has always said was they're going to get the best players on the field. If you can help us, we're going to find a way to get you in the game. As far as numbers go, I think they'd like to have 2 deep at every receiver position, so they're looking at 8 guys, 2 inside receiver spots, 2 outside receiver spots. And I do think they'd be able to find it. Unlike last year where maybe they really relied heavily on 3 guys, Tavon Austin, Stedman Bailey, and J.D. Woods, for almost all of the receiving offense. I think this year they can spread it around more, which will make it harder on defenses.
Kind of going to the line, I think of past years where Bill Beatenbow, who left for Oklahoma, and he would talk about how they'd have to generate competition because they just didn't really have the bodies, and they were trying to fool guys, I guess was the best way to put it, that somebody behind them was actually competing for their spot, but they were true, they were true freshmen, and there was no way that was going to happen. This year it's completely different with as many offensive linemen as they have on the there. Has anybody emerged, or who are kind of the leaders, and how's that going to play out?
Quentin Spain, by far, I'd say would be the biggest leader on the offensive line just from what he's done. Dana took him down to media day in Dallas. But I think one of the other things I like there, of course, depth is the word of the day here, but they are playing 3 full offensive lines, which is a luxury they've never had before.
Great. Thanks, Ed, for joining us, and we'll be back with more throughout fall camp. Thanks for joining us here on TheDPost.com, and please continue to check our website for Dana Holgorsen press conferences and more from player interviews. Thanks.